Hey everyone, today I want to talk about elemental lancets for the new title update. Some of the weapons and armor pieces from the new monsters are actually really good for lance. With the introduction of all the new elemental skills in the previous title update, elemental lance has become pretty much the strongest option in most matchups. And with the new weapon augmentations and decorations, it has gotten even stronger. Since Chain Crit, which is now called Burst, is now available as a decoration, builds have become a lot more flexible. So today I want to show you 3 different build templates that can be used for all 5 elements by just changing the elemental decoration. The first build is gonna make use of the new skill called Embolden from the Violet Mizutsune armor set. Embolden is active when you are targeted by the monster. While the skill is active, you gain defense, evade window and guard, depending on the level of the skill. The monster is also more likely to become enraged when the skill is active. It therefore has a great synergy with Agitator and Defiance, because those skills are only active when the monster is enraged. The build doesn't even need a talisman or armor augments to work. In multiplayer though, you're not always the target of the monster, and therefore Embolden is not always active. Which is why I have a second build that has guard 3 and guard up in it. It's super comfy and perfect for multiplayer or anomaly investigations. But for it to be efficient and not lose out on too much damage, you need 3 skills either from your talisman or from your armor augments. And the last build is gonna be a Dereliction build for all the people out there that want that extra damage and don't mind their health not being at 100% the whole time. I will then try to provide a priority list of skills that you can get from the Curious Augment system to further improve your build. And then in the end, I'm gonna show you the best weapons for each element. Okay, now let's look at the first build. As you can see, we are using the legs, waist and arms of the new Violet Mizutsune armor set. Together they give us Agitator 5, Embolden 2, Weakness Exploit 2 and Offensive Guard 2. Those are all great skills to have on lance. Remember that Embolden makes the monster enrage faster, which means that Agitator is gonna have a way higher uptime. For the mail, we use the Silver Raphalos mail because it comes with the skill Element Exploit. 1 level of Element Exploit will give you 10% more elemental damage on all elemental hits on values of 20 or above. And for the helmet, we use the Shagaru helmet. It has the skill Bloodlust, which will give you the Frenzy virus. After you cure from the virus, you get 20% affinity and it will also proc Coalescence. Coalescence is gonna give you additional raw and element. Now if you look at the core skills, we can also see that we have maxed out element attack. And depending on what element we are using, we can just switch out the decos. Damage you get from 1 level of Chain Crit is pretty much equal to 3 levels of attack boost. And with the new decoration, we can easily slot it into the build. Since Lance is attacking a lot, maintaining sharpness is really important. Depending on the weapon you are using or your playstyle, you might want to include Protective Polish or Master's Touch. Master's Touch 3 has a 80% chance to not lose sharpness on a crit. Protective Polish 3 on the other hand makes you not lose sharpness for the next 90 seconds after sharpening. I personally like to use Master's Touch if I have 30 or more hits and if I can reach high affinity, because then I don't have to sharpen every 90 seconds. If you have only very little sharpness available, don't reach high affinity, or are generally very bad at aiming for weak spots, I would recommend using Protective Polish instead. We get 50% affinity from Weakness Exploit, 15% affinity from Agitator and 20% from Bloodlust, which means we reach 85% affinity. Including Critical Boost 3 here is gonna give you more damage than going for 100% affinity by using 3 levels of Critical Eye. The last core skill is Critical Element 1 because it comes for free with the Silver Raphalos mail. As you can see, there is no talisman needed to reach all these core skills, which means you can either use a talisman that's gonna free up some decoration slots, or you can use a talisman that includes skills from the nice to have list. Now some of the elemental lances already have 15% base affinity, which means you perfectly reach 100% affinity with them. In that case, I would try to include Attack Boost 4 or some additional levels of chain crit or crit element. If your weapon comes with 0% affinity, you can try to go to 100 by including 3 levels of critical eye. But the talisman is not the only thing that is gonna give you some extra skills. You can also get more skills from the armor augments. Weakness exploit and critical boost can pretty much fit into every build and free up some decoration slots. That's why they are S tier. Getting slot upgrades is really good because depending on the slots of your weapon, it's relatively easy to free up that level 3 elemental attack decoration on the chest. Burst, Protective Polish, Master's Touch and Offensive Guard are a bit more situational, but they're still really good if you can get them. Attack boost is only worth it if you can actually fit 4 levels of it. Therefore you need either a good talisman or good augments. It depends on the weapon if you need critical eye, therefore I put both of the skills into B tier. Now with the new weapon augments, it's best to augment for attack 2 and element 4 in most matchups. There are some matchups like the crabs, which have very high elemental hit zone values and low raw hit zone values, where it is better to augment for 5 element. For the switch skills I recommend to use Insta Block, because it's really good in Sunbreak now and it synergizes well with Offensive Guard. Then I would also use Shield Charge, because you can easily get a KO with it. Using Guard Dash gives you access to the best move that Lance has in Sunbreak, which is the Leaping Thrust. It is part of all the best DPS combos, so you definitely don't want to miss out on it. For the 4th switch skill, you can pretty much use whatever you want. I personally like to have Anchorage on my main scroll and Skyward Thrust on my secondary scroll. And for the last switch skill, I would recommend using Sheathing Retreat. It has decent iframes and is a good way to get out of sticky situations or avoid annoying multi-attacks, like the Loosen Spin attack for example. For the Rampage Decoration, you should always use the Anti-Species Decoration. There is no other decoration that can compete with the 5% raw that you get from it. Pyra and Ragnar don't have an anti-species decoration that works against them. And since it's hard to hit the head with the good elemental hit zone value consistently, I would recommend using the Daora Soul. Ismagorm doesn't have an anti-species decoration as well, but there it's a lot easier to hit the parts with the good elemental hit zone value, therefore I recommend using Elembane. Okay, now let's look at the next build. Here we're just gonna change the arms to the basal braces. We lose 1 level of Embolden and a 2 slot, but we gain 1 level of guard and guard up. We also slot in a Iron Wall plus 3 jewel to reach guard 3. But to be able to fit all core skills, we need a talisman. The talisman can be very flexible though. In this example, I used a weakness exploit 1 with a 2 slot. But the skill on the talisman can be pretty much anything that you get from the decorations, and then you just slot in a tenderizer jewel instead. The guard that you get from the 1 level of Embolden actually stacks with the other guard. Instablock already has guard up 3 and guard 5 built in. Having guard 3 just makes you take less chip damage if you miss the timing. The move you do before a leaping thrust, guard dash, already has built-in guard 3. So together with the 3 guard that you get from the set, you can block pretty much every attack without having to interrupt your DPS combo. This also works with the guard from the Embolden 2 set. Now let's look at the last build, the Dereliction build. Here we just use the Archfiend Armor legs instead of the Violet Mizutsune legs to get 1 level of Dereliction. But since the Violet Mizutsune legs have a lot of good skills on it, we need a pretty decent talisman to make this build work. Talisman needs to have 2 of the core skills and a 2 slot. The 2 skills on the talisman can either be Weakness Exploit, Crit Boost, Offensive Guard, or either Master's Touch or Protective Polish depending on what you use. Dereliction gives us element on the red scroll and raw on the blue scroll. Staying on the blue scroll is slightly better in most matchups. On some matchups like the crabs with high elemental hit zone value, it's better to stay on the red scroll. Alright, that's all the build templates. You can just use the armor augments to add additional skills to your build and get more damage or comfort depending on what you want. Next we're gonna look at the best weapon choices for each element. The best option for fire is the new Flaming Aspinus Lance. It has really good slots and it already comes with 15% affinity. So with any of the build templates you immediately reach 100%. It only comes with 20 hits of purple though, so I recommend either going with one handicraft and master's touch or just use protective polish to preserve those 20 hits. It also has a hidden poison element, but even without it, it's probably the best fire lance in the game, and the hidden poison makes it for sure the best. If you can't craft it yet, or if you don't like it, you can use the Agnosome lance. The reason why I'm not recommending the Silver Raphalos lance here is because it has 35% affinity and that's just too much for any of the build templates. Otherwise, it's pretty much equal with the Agnosome lance. For water, we have the mizutsune lance, which also comes with 15% affinity. It has very little purple sharpness though, so if you can't fit 2 levels of handicraft, I would recommend going with protective polish. The other water lance is the Royal Ludroth lance. It doesn't come with 15% affinity, but it has better slots. In my opinion, they're both equally good. Some matchup Mizu wins and some matchup the Ludroth lance wins. For Thunder, the Narva lance is by far the best lance. It has 71 Thunder and no other lance comes even close to it. That's why even with white sharpness it outperforms every other Thunder lance in the game. And if that's not enough, you can go one handicraft to reach purple sharpness and preserve it with protective polish. For ice, we have 2 options again. We have the Semite lance with high element but only white sharpness, and then we have the Lunagaron lance which has purple sharpness but less element. If there is a high elemental hits on value and a low raw hits on value, the Semite lance is the better choice. On the other hand, if the raw hits on value is high but the elemental hits on value is low, the Lunagaron will perform better. For Dragon, we have the Valstrax lance and the Raging Wyvern. By looking at the stats, it appears that the Raging Wyvern is the better lance. But since the white sharpness of the Valstrax lance is that crazy good, you pretty much don't need any sharpness skills and you can put in more damage. That allows it to catch up to the Raging Wyvern lance. I personally prefer and use the lances in the top row, but they're all good, so you can just choose whichever one you like. That's pretty much it for this video. If you have a question or if you want me to make raw lance builds, just leave a comment. So yeah, thank you for watching.